We're going to be walking through installing AVEVA System Platform Development Server 2023 R2 Service Pack 1 Patch 3. So these concepts and details are going to apply to other versions, but this is the version we're going to be running through. There's also a document in the description that has the written steps out that you can follow and reference, so that'll help. Probably most importantly, there's a pre-built VM in that document linked that you can just import this development VM. It's already all done. You just have to hassle with some downloading and importing VM stuff. But if you want to skip building everything, you can do that if you have that option. Okay, so we're already building a VM here. We're just running through the different settings. So setting the right generation and amount of RAM. So I prefer 32 gigabytes of RAM on my virtual machines now. When there's an abundance of RAM, at the time of this recording, there's a shortage of RAM due to data centers being built. So you can certainly set your RAM to be dynamic and save on your RAM cost. Here I'm doing a fixed sized virtual machine. Okay, and this is going to be the operating system. So the initial wizard for building the virtual machine, I did not create the disk there. I created it later as an add-on, so I can say fixed. I wanted it to be a fixed size, not dynamic. The reason for that is just reliability. I want the OS to no matter what work. It's how I design my computer systems. And then the data disk, that can be dynamic, where if it runs out of space, I can lose data, which is a design decision. Most of the systems I work on, keeping the system running is more important than keeping the data. You have to pick, right? In a run out of disk space scenario, preferably you just bought a bunch of disk space and design your system well where that doesn't happen. But if it does happen, you have to pick what's going to happen. So for some people, it's like, hey, if we don't want to lose any data, we can turn the system off. That's okay. But for those folks that cannot lose data, that's their decision. Okay, so we're moving right along here. We're doing the annoying thing of waiting for the operating system to be seen. So we got the ISO file loaded up, and we're going to just have to wait for the any key screen to appear and catch it. It's just there for a couple seconds. And there we go. Pressed any key, and we fired off Windows setup. So this is Windows Server 2025, which, at the time of this video is new. It's been out a little less than a year. We're going to do, I don't have a product key. Make sure select desktop experience so that it has a GUI, and we did standard. So we have the standard license and not the data center license. Insert joke about reading all that. All right, it picks up a disk. Good. Just go ahead and install there. Okay, great. Just speeding through this install wizard. It's pretty quick. I don't remember exact timing, 10, 15 minutes. They really want us to type in a product key, but We'll say do this later. Okay. Go ahead and type in a password there. It does have to be complex, which is annoying. So, yep, do whatever you want there, obviously, but had to do a complex password. Go ahead and run a script that sets the registry and turns off password complexity. And we can have a short password, which for a development box like this is great, right? So this VM might just be running on your laptop, and it doesn't have any, it doesn't have the same security requirements like a production server has, right? So it may not even be on your production network. So, anyways, you know, a lot of people nowadays do have to like always have a long password, but a lot of people also can just have a short password. So that's what we're doing. Okay. All right, that booted up. Great. It says it's running. We're just waiting for it to shut down. Okay, great. It's off. Okay. And just adding that that second hard drive here. So it's going to be a dynamic hard drive. And we're going to call this the backup disk. So, you know, about a terabyte there. Your system, you know, I expect a lot of variation here in how people do this, but here the idea going for is the dev server is going to keep backups. So Galaxy backups, COM server config backups, installers, license files, documentation, scripts. That's where the backups are going to be. In a production system platform architecture, the GR node, that'd be a good place to put files. So the main copy of the files, maybe trend sets. The trends are referencing that operators tend to save and change around, that they can live there. Anyway, we won't get too much into having a whole bunch of files, how to do secondary disk, but it does help to think that through and have network drives set and that kind of thing. Okay, so we've added this virtual disk in Hyper-V, but it hasn't been initialized in Windows. So go ahead and say online and then initialize it, sticking with GPT partition. That makes sense on modern systems. Okay, making a simple volume. Go ahead and call this B as in boy. And just go ahead and name it the backup disk. Okay, great. We've got a well-prepared virtual machine. So now that we're at this point, we're taking a checkpoint. So, you know, Windows is I really shouldn't have said Windows is prepared. Windows is vanilla right now, right? And we're just saying before the prep script. So this is a PowerShell script. It's up on GitHub, and the link to it is in the document, which is linked in the description. So you got to click a couple links, just two, to get there, but that's the path. So yeah, this has just the common, just common settings in general that are good to set for development systems. Not even AVEVA, just anything. Um, and you can use parts of it for production, right? Like, hey, that's a good idea, and take that and write a production script. So just in general, when building virtual machines, it's helpful to have a PowerShell script to prepare them. It's a time invested thing if it pays off later. You can certainly go down rabbit holes and burn the whole day on things, but if you build a lot of virtual machines, it is worth the rabbit hole risk. Okay, so here's the script. The first thing we do is just basically say we're allowed to run scripts on this system. So those are the two commands I've found to just really open it up. Again, the idea here is this is a dev system and things can just be open, right? So when this script runs, I'm turning off UAC, LUA, which is a really interesting setting of it limits what even administrators can do. So it's like you're an administrator, but not like the best administrator. So that can trip things up, and I just found it useful to have that off so I don't end up burning a few hours at some point. Um, so yeah. Um, let's see. So yeah, it takes a while to run. Here, one thing it does is it prompts you to run Windows updates. Those take a long time, so it's nice to just get that done. Installed Microsoft Office. Okay, so it just ripped through a bunch of things and then does a reboot. So it should have auto logged in here. Actually had a mistake of using PowerShell x86, which has less libraries than just normal PowerShell. So it missed a couple things when we ran the script, which is actually pretty common, right? When you're running a PowerShell script that does a bunch of stuff, it misses a couple things, and things can still work. But that's why we did take a snapshot. Is once we get to the AVEVA installer, let's say we start to struggle and have problems, it's a very good troubleshooting step to just be able to go back, rerun the script, make sure it ran right, check some things, and scrutinize them. You'll come out time ahead on average versus just like, I don't want to waste 30 minutes, so I'm going to spend 2 days trying to troubleshoot this. You're better off just reverting to that checkpoint and then trying again. Which that's probably the most important lesson you could take from this install video is just doing checkpoints or snapshots in VMware. It's the rope. Rock climbing, you need rope, and here you need checkpoints. All right, so we're selecting just about everything in here. InTouch, you may or may not need. We don't need InTouch Access Anywhere, Historian Client. We're going to just do all the communication drivers. You'll probably want to, on your system, pick the couple you need. And then we need a license server. Next. So an example on the checkpoint point, what could go wrong there is you might be, you might just select everything there. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm selecting everything. Well, InTouch Access Anywhere requires web servers, and then you start checking around with web stuff, and then you're uninstalling things, installing things, and you're not even going to use it on a dev server. So yeah. Okay, installing. When you saw that username there, that's a service running account. AVEVA tends to be a good name for that. It's like, what's the account AVEVA uses for running services? AVEVA. It's a very natural name. And then on the dev system here, the password is short. Doesn't matter too much because you're rarely going to type in that password. And we're to configurator. Do you have Flex or Perpetual licenses? We're going with Flex. We're going to do no encryption because it's a development server. We want to keep it simple and mess with as little stuff as we have to. Okay. And you're really just going through configurator and just making it all turn green. We're not, on a dev system here, we're not changing this stuff around. The only change was the system management server, leaving that off. Otherwise, you're just going through, click and configure. I think once we get towards the end, I think we will deviate just on a couple of those settings, but yeah. We did zip through that server, Historian server install. That's going to take 5 or 10 minutes. Runs a bunch of SQL queries to create the database and tables and all that sort of stuff that Historian needs for its configuration. And here, there's where we deviate from defaults, disable, and we're deviating from defaults, and there's another spot. Because, again, it's a dev system, not production. The installer assumes production. So we want a couple differences there to make the best possible build. Have to do a restart. That restart dialog box takes a long time, 30 seconds, a minute to appear, but you do want to wait on that. And we zip through some Windows updates there. The next thing is going to be patching AVEVA. We're installing patch 3. It's January 2026 here. And any week now, patch 4 is going to be out. So just so you know, when you watch this, there's probably going to be a patch 4 that you want to install. Maybe even a patch 5. Okay, so this is an important point. This can really butterfly effect, make a lot of chaos. That Bootstrap proxy takes a long time to start, and what you're tempted to do is click the stop button, but then everything just gets in a weird state. So, okay, everything's running, and seriously, it's like 5 minutes, right? Click that stop services button. Things stopped, right? And if you miss that and then you end up installing and half installing and getting some mess, you just go back to your checkpoint and then run through the installer again. And the patch takes a long time, like 30 minutes. It's a good opportunity to take a break. Big time zipping through it there. Finish. Just a little pause. All right. Okay. And you have to run through configurator again. And this time around it is even more straightforward. Just anything that's not green, you click on it, click configure. This first click is going to upgrade the historian database, its configuration database, the runtime SQL Server database. Yep, just hitting configure. So yeah, these these steps take time. So we're putting a temp license on here. Um, there's two types of license files. There's an XML type and a .loc type. The .loc is my favorite. It's just a temp, and you have to put in this crazy spot, but no activation required. So if you don't have internet, it's real easy. Even if you do have internet, it's easy. So yeah, but if you have a real license, that's going to be a XML file, which there's YouTube videos on that, how to activate those. Okay, so this next thing is the enable remote desktop role. And there's a number of settings, and it takes, you install for a few minutes and then you need wait around and then do more settings. So this script here, also on GitHub, just aggregates those settings and lets the install run in the background. Also it tends to be very foreign to people going into Server Manager. Most people don't have Server Manager experience. So anyways, it's a handy script to enable the RDP role. We're using it here on this development server, but you could use it on like a production, if you're building a production terminal server. It could be useful for that too. And it just zips through, takes like 10 minutes. in here. Okay, so the RDP roll's done. Have yet another Windows thing to do, and go ahead and just run a Windows finish PowerShell script. Okay. And this only does a few things. This is a newer script. When you watch this video, it might be more developed than it is here, but it just like runs Windows updates, prompts you to pin things to the taskbar, which we actually had an issue with this virtual machine having problems with pinning things. But just some general advice, it's helpful to pin things to the start so that they're findable. It just makes a Microsoft Windows computer much more usable. Yeah, that's the sort of error if you don't run those commands saying you can run scripts on the computer. And more Windows updates. There's always a few rounds you have to run of Windows updates, so peppering those in should go along with the installs. Tends to work well. And this is just running through the process of pinning things to the taskbar. And I got that screenshot on there, up on the screen, showing you that you could bounce back to, showing you what the start, what you want the start thing, this Windows Start to look like. All right, and we're going to launch configurator yet again because there's a couple settings that just get unset. It's annoying. It's a real, so those right there, just go through and click configure again. So this is the third time of running configurator. Annoying, but it only takes a moment. So that GPRC stuff is for getting away from DCOM for Galaxy communication to work. So that'll probably, this year's 2026 of this video, and future years that'll probably be different because that's in the works, something AVEVA's working on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is load up a starter galaxy with some stuff, some objects already, templates already existing, and there'll be a system app that'll help us test that things are working. So yeah. I'm sorry, we're rerunning the RDP role, so as a video shooting mistake of ours. And just making another checkpoint. Again, most important thing you could learn from this video is make checkpoints. Okay, before Galaxy. So, like I was saying a minute ago, we're going to use a starter Galaxy, which is also in the document. There's a link in the document. You can download it and load it. Be careful if you're loading on. You can't load it on any system older than 2023 R2 Service Pack 1 Patch 3, because it'll just cause pretty severe problems. Not pretty severe, severe problems. So there's the link. So downloading it, and we got to put it in a weird location. So where the starter galaxies live. Another nice little tip though of this video, tends to be helpful, so grab that galaxy. And program files, x86, orchestra, framework, bin, backup galaxies. There we go. So with the installer has some but we got a better one. So okay, go ahead and launch the System Platform IDE. There we go. Okay, go ahead and make a new galaxy called development from our development.cab on our development server. Developers, developers, developers. I love developers. Developers. Name that CEO. Okay, and we zip through the creation. That does take a couple minutes. But here, I've got a platform already made called dev server. I just need to deploy it. There's a system area. There's a system app. Okay, and this is going to validate that our install is actually working, right? Because you can run through and install stuff. Like any project, anything you do, like you could go through it, but it just doesn't work, right? So we want to make sure to test it when we get to the end and we actually remember stuff. We don't want the weekend to happen and we forget things. Okay. So here I'm launching the system app, which is an OMI app. It does take 30 seconds to load, and then the top right is a preview button. Click on that. So it's saying don't use this to run production. This is just for testing, this preview app business. right, so it's running. Just add dev, which is the computer name. And if you remember from the installer, we installed Historian. Okay, so I see in Historian I got data there. Cool. So Historian's working. And flip that switch there, make sure I can acknowledge alarms. Sometimes there's permissions problems with acknowledging alarms, so that tells me security stuff's working. Go to historical alarms. Can it go to the Historian history blocks, because that's where alarms are nowadays, and it works. Okay, things are working. Alarms and trends, right? That's your major functions you want to test, It's kind of like, you want to test everything. It's like, it's not feasible. Just alarms and trends is good. Or at least alarms and trends, right? You can test other stuff that's not forbidden, but make sure you at least get to that point before the weekend hits and you forget things. Okay, so we're going to make a backup now. So the checkpoints are kind of like an informal, I don't know, a temporary kind of backup. Go ahead and make a full backup of the entire virtual machine where I can put it on a flash drive, put it on a network drive, upload it to the cloud somewhere. Just a real backup. So, because, you probably spent a lot of time working on this. I think a reasonable expectation is to spend 2 days building up a dev server. Not constant work. There's a lot of waiting on progress bars where you go and do other things, but and you're going to mess up if you don't do this. If it's been years since you've done it, you're just going to mess it up. I mean, in the same way, I mess up stuff around my house. So yeah, notice in the bottom right, that cancel exporting. Hyper-V, I have more mileage on VMware. I'm still learning it, but that's the best way I know to see it's actually exporting. It's going to take a long time because it's a big giant thing. I mean, 30 minutes, something like that. But yeah. Okay, exporting. And then once it's exported, you want to delete the checkpoints, right? Because they are a risk of corruption. Okay, good luck.